Hey guys, for anyone new here, this is part 4 of an ongoing saga. I've linked the original video in the description. So, picking up from where we left off, OP discovers that her children already knew they were half-siblings and aren't actually trying to date each other. They were just trying to force their dad to come clean about the infidelity. So, onto the story. Update 3. The DNA test results aren't back yet. That can take weeks. But now that I know that Sophie is no longer in danger of dating her brother, the pressure is off. To quell some fears, I highly doubt that my father-in-law is having an affair with Amy. I've been vague about the details for privacy, but to put it simply, Jim and Amy are both pretty white. Kat and Luke aren't. Had Jim fathered Amy's babies, they would look completely different than they do. Nevertheless, I do have an update. First things first, our little team has supposedly recruited my mother-in-law. I say supposedly because Sophie and Tom were going to ask her for help with the DNA test, and at the advice of my lawyer, I'm staying out of it. Officially, I told Sophie not to do it. I can honestly say I had no knowledge of any DNA test. Loophole City. Another bit of good news, I was digging through the paperwork in preparation for my divorce, wanting to get a head start against Luke, and I found that my name is on the deed for our house. Luke's name is not. I was the one who bought the house, and we always planned to add Luke on at some point, but we never got around to it. It was my lawyer Paige who pointed this out to me, and it was like finding a winning lottery ticket on the ground. I don't know where I'd be without Paige. She's a dear friend from college who I reached out to for help. She's really been there for me this week, not just as legal counsel, but as the friend that I really needed right now. Paige is a lawyer who specializes in family law and has handled divorces before. Luke remembers her from college and knows she went into law, but he doesn't know that she's a divorce attorney. So I can have her over for coffee like we're just catching up, and he has no idea what's really going on. Turns out, he's not the only one who can harbor someone right under their spouse's nose, under the guise of just being a friend. So, onto the update. The last time I checked Luke's phone was about 3 months ago, around the time that Sophie and Tom began saying they wanted to date. I found nothing. I know how to search for recently deleted photos, and I didn't see any. However, the comments told me how to find recently deleted messages. So, when Luke was asleep, I did just that. I swiped his phone, brought it downstairs, and checked the recently deleted file. I'm glad I did, but I also wish I hadn't, because I'm still reeling from the pain. Sure enough, a conversation with Amy had been deleted. Text talking about the conflict between me and her, with Amy describing me as a problem, and Luke trying to pacify her, without defending me at all, to be clear. They both alluded to how they had expected this for a while, and had just hoped it would never happen, presumably me accusing them of having an affair. While the whole conversation and the fact that it was deleted was sketchy, nothing was actually admitted. So I scrolled a bit higher, to a few days before the fight. Amy's messages got a bit more flirty. Then I saw it. 5 days before I confronted them, Amy had sent Luke a topless picture, a selfie with no shirt or bra. Guys, I teared up. I knew it was true, I knew it in my bones, but seeing the actual proof still cut me like a hot knife. I then checked Luke's recently deleted photos. Sure enough, the same selfie was there, and others. Amy topless, Amy naked, in various poses to show off. There were pictures of the two of them together, cuddled and pressed close like a couple. In some of these, she was naked. In some, they both were. There were even videos. Amy sent Luke a video message of herself topless, her voice talking to him in a tone that made me sick, about how she was sending him a quick video to help him get through the day. In more than one video, she called him her boo, and hearing her call him that, I almost vomited. I stopped looking at that point, I'd seen enough. For about 5 minutes anyway. Then I had a strange compulsion to check Luke's laptop. I know his passwords to access his iCloud storage, and yeah, basically more of the same. There were letters, long letters between them. I didn't have the heart to read past the first few lines, but I did see Luke mention our children. There were videos where Amy appeared to be pleasuring herself. There were also sex tapes of the two of them. Tom had previously offered to try and hide a camera in Amy's room, but heck, he never needed to. Luke was hiding a whole treasure trove right under my nose all along. I scrolled and scrolled and scrolled. There were so many, going back years. Not all of them were even sexual. There were some photos of Amy's kids too. One of Kaylee and the twins playing together when they were younger, and Luke and Amy's voices from behind the camera. There were even old pictures of Luke and Amy from when they were younger. I'd say even teenagers. I snapped. All these years, I've been telling myself I had to be wrong, that it couldn't be true. Well, it was true. I know that no one forced me to look at so much of the evidence, but I'm still hurting very badly from having seen it, and in that moment, I wanted to act. So I did. I called my lawyer, who is a remarkable woman. It was the middle of the night, so I had to call her twice, and she picked up. Even though I woke her when I asked her to come by and said it was an emergency, she agreed. I also asked her to drop the paperwork and have it ready. She told me that she'd already had it ready since I first reached out to her. As I waited for her, I went through Luke's laptop to make sure he wouldn't be able to remotely disconnect our access to his little stash, changing passwords and all that. My lawyer Paige arrived, and I went outside to greet her in the car. Spent a good half hour in the passenger seat just crying, and she was great about that, before I passed her Luke's phone and his laptop, with all the information she needed to use them. She warned me that this could be considered theft, so I asked her to forward and print out copies of everything she could, and then bring the items back. I just couldn't bear to do it myself. She agreed. I went back inside, and then I packed up all of Luke's things while the house slept. At one point, Owen got up to use the bathroom and asked what I was doing. I told him I was just cleaning. Luke stirred once or twice when I was in the bedroom, but didn't wake. I got all his things packed into trash bags and loaded up the car. That's when I woke him up and told him to come outside. He was confused and half asleep, but he did notice that his things were missing. I ignored his questions and told him to just come with me, so he followed me outside. Once we were by the car, I pulled out the divorce papers and officially handed them to him. That was about when he realized what I was doing, and he tried to talk me out of it, tried to be sweet with me, to be tender. He kept insisting that he loved me and that there had never been anything with Amy. Kept trying to persuade me to not tear our family apart. Even 2 weeks ago, I might have wilted because the manipulation and gaslighting were truly masterclass. But I can see through it now. I didn't tell him that I knew he was full of BS. I didn't tell him what I'd seen. I just told him we were finished. He then tried a different approach. He refused to go, stating firmly that our children were his too, and that even if we were separating, I had no right to just decide that the kids would stay with me over him. This is when I coldly presented the paperwork, reminding him that the house was actually in my name, and told him that under no circumstances would my kids be staying with Amy. He argued a while longer, but in the end, decided to be the bigger person and keep the peace. Before he left, he did ask about his phone and laptop. I waved him off, saying they were in one of the bags. Bought a little extra time. I couldn't sleep for the rest of that night. I cried more. Eventually, I realized I'd have to wake my kids up early and explain what I could. Naturally, I woke Sophie up first. I told her that I'd kicked her father out, and that I had discovered evidence of their affair on his devices. I didn't specify what kind of evidence, and she didn't ask. I woke up the others, and gently told them that their dad had gone to stay somewhere else for a while. Louise asked if we were getting divorced. I couldn't lie to her. I told her yes. Owen asked when they could see their father again, and I wanted to cry. Sophie was a very big help, urging her siblings to be sympathetic to me right now, and to worry about Dad later. I knew better than to poison them against their father. Paige had warned me against doing that as well, so I only told Sophie that the affair was confirmed, since she was already in the know. However, as the kids were getting ready for school, Owen approached me and asked me point blank if it was about Amy, if Luke was going to be with her instead of me. Jesus, even the little kids knew. They were that blatant. I couldn't answer. I suppose that's an answer on its own. My next step was calling to have the locks changed. I knew Luke would be back for his devices before long, but thankfully Paige returned them before he showed up again. She had records of everything we'd need in court. Sure enough, Luke turned up about an hour later, demanding to know where his laptop and phone were. I'd set them back in our bedroom like they'd never moved, and I just told him he'd forgotten them. I love the gaslighting him back. Una reverse gaslighting. He insisted that I'd said they were in one of the bags, so I just shrugged him off and told him I must have been mistaken. Aw, should have said, no I didn't, you must have misheard me. I told you they were right where you left them. OP's been this passive little lamb all these years. Luke must be so confused. After he grabbed them, he tried again to reason with me, but I just showed him the door. I knew the kids would come home from school soon, and I think he was trying to delay leaving so he could see them. I was not having it. I started shouting again and sent him on his way. I'm still just in absolute pain and despair for what I saw. I don't know if he'll realise that anyone went through his devices and made copies of the evidence, or if he suspects that I saw anything, but he obviously didn't say so. After he left, I cried once again. I bet he knows. His gaslighting and smooth talking has worked for years, and now suddenly she's done a full 180? Not doubting herself, not even hearing him out, just shouting at him to leave. They've been blatantly cheating under her nose all these years, being so obvious that even the kids noticed. But she's always allowed him to talk his way around it, doubting herself, not wanting to tear the family apart. I'm not at all blaming her for that, it just means that she's a sweet person, and he took advantage of her sweet nature. But for her to suddenly be completely immune to his gaslighting and don't tear our family apart BS, she must have seen hard evidence. Stuff even he can't reason his way around. I talked to my mother-in-law that night. Apparently Luke showed up at his parents' house, which was a surprise as I was so certain he'd stay with Amy. But maybe even he knows how suspicious that would look. Maybe he knows I'm more likely to let my children see their grandmother than Amy at this point, and he wants to tell them his version of events. That is not happening. Kat already shared his version with me, that I'm having some kind of mental breakdown, that he wishes he could help me, but my paranoia is causing me to lash out and turn violent. I was never violent. I shoved him away when he tried to hold me. That's all. And what's so hilarious is he didn't even mention Amy at all to his parents. He didn't even frame it as me falsely believing he was having an affair, even though that was his story when talking to me. He left Amy completely out of it when talking to his parents. Kat knows that as well. She believes me. Jim doesn't know what to believe anymore. According to Kat, he seemed very, very troubled by what he heard. As for Amy, she's radio silent. Thomas told Sophie that she's acting like nothing's wrong, but is clearly stressed out. That when her kids ask, she makes the same sort of claims, that I'm having some kind of emotional nervous breakdown and pushing her away, as well as Luke. She doesn't mention anything about me accusing them of having an affair, but still puts it all on me. Amy hasn't reached out to talk to me directly, and I haven't tried talking to her. I haven't really told my kids anything, just that I'm having disagreements with Luke and Amy, though I was very, very clear it is not a question of my mental health. Honestly, I think they all kind of know what's going on. Sophie continues to be my rock as I try to be for her and the others, and Tom continues to be our spy in the ranks. Right now, my biggest regret is all the stress this is causing the children, which I knew it would, but it still needs to be done. My life has fallen apart, but it was all fake anyway. If you're enjoying this story, please let me know by hitting that like button, and if anyone has any theories, please feel free to share. I'd love to hear them. See you all in the next one.